Jennifer Walsh was 36 years old, a marketing executive from Seattle, and during what should have been a routine appendectomy, she woke up under anesthesia and heard her husband of 12 years tell the surgeon, "Don't save her." The anesthesia awareness lasted only 90 seconds, but in that time, Jennifer heard her husband explain exactly why he wanted her dead, heard the doctor refuse, and heard a nurse promise to document everything. What Jennifer did with that information destroyed her husband's life, sent him to prison, cost him $7.2 million, and exposed a conspiracy that shocked everyone who knew them, and she felt absolutely no guilt about any of it. Jennifer had no idea her husband wanted her dead. None. But when she woke up on that operating table, paralyzed but conscious, unable to move or speak, but able to hear everything, she learned the truth about the man she'd married. Her husband, Daniel Walsh, stood in that operating room and calmly told the surgeon that if complications arose, if Jennifer's heart stopped or something went wrong, he didn't want heroic measures. "Let her go," he said. "She's suffered enough." But Jennifer hadn't been suffering. She'd been perfectly healthy, aside from appendicitis. And the nurse standing in the corner, a woman named Patricia Chen, heard everything and knew something was terribly wrong. What happened next wasn't just about divorce or revenge. It was about survival, justice, and making sure a man who tried to murder his wife faced every consequence possible. Before diving into exactly how Jennifer brought down a man who thought he'd planned the perfect crime, hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Drop your location in the comments. This story is about betrayal at its darkest and justice at its sweetest. Jennifer met Daniel Walsh 14 years ago at a tech industry conference in San Francisco. She was 22, just graduated from USC with a marketing degree, attending her first professional conference. He was 28, a successful software engineer at Microsoft, giving a presentation on emerging technologies. She remembered thinking he was brilliant, confident, articulate. After his panel, she approached him with a question about digital marketing trends, and they ended up talking for hours. He was charming, funny, genuinely interested in her thoughts, despite her being fresh out of college. He asked for her number, started calling regularly, and within 3 months, they were dating seriously. Daniel swept Jennifer off her feet. He'd fly from Seattle to LA every other weekend to see her. He'd send flowers to her tiny apartment with notes about missing her. He talked about the future constantly, about building a life together, about how she was different from anyone he'd ever met. 6 months in, he asked her to move to Seattle. "There's a great marketing position at Microsoft," he said. "I can get you an interview. We can be together." It felt fast, but Jennifer was in love. She took the interview, got the job, moved to Seattle, moved in with Daniel. Everything happened so quickly, but it felt right. It felt like destiny. They got married 2 years later, small ceremony, just family and close friends, at a beautiful venue overlooking Puget Sound. Jennifer wore a simple, elegant dress. Daniel cried during his vows, promising to love her forever, to support her dreams, to be her partner through everything. Her parents adored him. Her friends thought she'd won the lottery. Successful, handsome, devoted Daniel. Jennifer felt like the luckiest woman alive. They bought a house in Queen Anne, a gorgeous craftsman with views of the Space Needle. They both advanced in their careers, Jennifer becoming a senior marketing manager, Daniel becoming a lead engineer. They traveled, entertained, lived the life young, successful couples dream about. The first 10 years of marriage were mostly good. They had the normal struggles, disagreements about money and time and priorities, but nothing serious. They talked about having kids eventually, though Daniel always wanted to wait a bit longer, build more savings, get more established. Jennifer was fine with that. She was focused on her career anyway, climbing the ladder at Microsoft's marketing division. They maintained intimacy, still went on date nights, still laughed together. Daniel could be controlling sometimes, particular about how the house looked, how Jennifer dressed for work events, who she spent time with. But Jennifer rationalized it as him caring. wanting things to be perfect, being invested in their success as a couple. Around their 10th anniversary, things started changing. Daniel became more distant, spending longer hours at work, coming home stressed and uncommunicative. He'd snap at Jennifer over small things, criticize her cooking or her appearance, or how she'd organize something. When she'd try to talk about it, he'd shut down or accuse her of being too sensitive. Their sex life decreased dramatically. He started taking business trips that seemed excessive, weekends away for conferences that Jennifer couldn't attend. He became secretive with his phone, his computer, his schedule. Jennifer noticed, but didn't push too hard. She figured it was work stress, a phase they'd get through. She focused on her own career, got promoted to director of marketing, threw herself into her work. Then came the life insurance. About 18 months before the surgery, Daniel suggested they increase their life insurance policies. "We're getting older," he said. "We should make sure we're protected." Made sense. They went through the process, got physicals, updated their policies. Jennifer's policy was for $3 million, with Daniel as the sole beneficiary. Daniel's was the same, with Jennifer as beneficiary. Standard stuff for a successful married couple. Jennifer signed the papers without much thought. Why would she? She trusted her husband completely. She had no idea she'd just signed what Daniel hoped would be her death warrant. 6 months before the surgery, Jennifer started feeling sick. Nothing dramatic, just ongoing fatigue, occasional nausea, stomach issues. She went to her doctor, got tests done. Everything came back normal. Probably stress, the doctor said. Try to relax more. But Jennifer kept feeling off. Daniel was surprisingly attentive during this time, making her tea, encouraging her to rest, suggesting she take time off work. She thought he was being caring. Looking back, she wondered if he was poisoning her, trying to make her sick, setting the stage for what he planned. She'd never be able to prove it, but the suspicion haunted her. Then came the appendicitis. Jennifer woke up one night in October with excruciating abdominal pain. Daniel rushed her to Swedish Medical Center. The ER doctor diagnosed acute appendicitis, said she needed emergency surgery. Jennifer was scared, but not overly worried. Appendectomies were routine, low risk. Daniel held her hand, told her it would be fine, kissed her forehead as they wheeled her toward the operating room. She remembered thinking how lucky she was to have him, how he'd been so present through her health issues, how much he loved her. She had no idea what he was planning. The surgery started normally. Jennifer was put under general anesthesia, the standard process. But something went wrong with the anesthesia. Instead of being completely unconscious, Jennifer experienced something called anesthesia awareness. She was paralyzed, couldn't move or speak or open her eyes, but she was conscious. She could hear everything happening around her. It's a rare complication, happens in about 1 in 1,000 surgeries, terrifying when it occurs. Jennifer could hear the surgeon talking, hear the beeping of monitors, hear the sounds of the operating room. She tried to move, to signal that she was awake, but her body wouldn't respond. The paralytic drugs prevented any movement. She was trapped in her own body, aware but helpless. Then she heard Daniel's voice. He was in the operating room, which was unusual. Family members typically weren't allowed in during surgery, but Daniel had talked his way in somehow, claiming he was too anxious to wait outside, that he was a software engineer who wouldn't faint at the sight of blood. The surgical team had allowed it. Big mistake. Jennifer heard Daniel speaking to the surgeon, Dr. Robert Martinez. His voice was calm, conversational. "Doctor," he said, "I need to discuss something with you." Jennifer heard Dr. Martinez respond, asking if everything was okay. Daniel said, "I need you to know that if there are any complications, if my wife's heart stops or something goes wrong, I don't want heroic measures. I want you to let her go." Jennifer's mind screamed, but her body remained frozen. She couldn't process what she was hearing. Dr. Martinez sounded confused. "Mr. Walsh," he said, Your wife is young and healthy. This is a routine procedure. There's no reason to expect complications. But Daniel insisted. She's been sick for months, he said. She's been suffering. If something happens, I think it's best to let nature take its course. She wouldn't want to be kept alive artificially. Jennifer wanted to scream, "No, that's not true. I want to live." But she couldn't make a sound. The paralysis held her completely. Dr. Martinez's voice became firmer. "Mr. Walsh, I'm not going to let your wife die if I can save her. That's not how this works. Unless there's a DNR order, which there isn't, I'm going to do everything possible to ensure she survives this surgery." Daniel's voice changed, became harder. "You don't understand," he said. "We've discussed this. She's made her wishes clear." Dr. Martinez cut him off. "Sir, if that were true, there would be documentation. There would be legal paperwork. There isn't. I'm going to have to ask you to leave the operating room now. You're interfering with my ability to care for my patient." Jennifer heard footsteps, Daniel protesting, then a new voice, a woman's voice, sharp and commanding. "Mr. Walsh, I'm going to escort you out. This is Nurse Patricia Chen speaking. You need to leave immediately, or I'm calling security." Jennifer heard more footsteps, a door opening and closing. Then Patricia's voice again, speaking to Dr. Martinez. "Doctor, I recorded that entire conversation. Something is very wrong here. Once Mrs. Walsh wakes up, we need to discuss this with her immediately." Dr. Martinez agreed. "That was highly inappropriate," he said. "I've never had a spouse request that I let their partner die during a routine surgery. We'll document everything and speak with her in recovery." Then the anesthesia pulled Jennifer back under. The awareness episode ended. She slipped back into unconsciousness, the surgical team unaware that she'd been awake and had heard everything. When Jennifer woke up in recovery 3 hours later, her first thought was, it was real. It happened. Her husband tried to have her killed. The nurse Patricia was sitting next to her bed. As soon as Jennifer's eyes opened, Patricia leaned close. "Mrs. Walsh," she said quietly, "I need you to stay calm. I have something important to tell you. Do you remember anything from the surgery?" Jennifer's throat was dry, her voice hoarse. "I remember," she whispered. "I heard everything." Patricia's eyes widened. "You were aware? That's extremely rare." Jennifer nodded. "I heard him. I heard my husband tell the doctor not to save me." Patricia squeezed her hand. "I recorded it," she said. "The whole conversation. I knew something was wrong. As soon as you're feeling better, we need to talk to hospital administration and probably the police. Your husband tried to convince your surgeon to let you die. That's attempted murder." The next few hours were a blur. Hospital administration came, listened to the recording Patricia had made on her phone, looked grave and concerned. They called the police. 2 detectives showed up, took Jennifer's statement, listened to the recording, asked detailed questions. "Did your husband have reason to want you dead? Life insurance? Another woman? Financial problems?" Jennifer didn't know. As far as she knew, their marriage was fine. Not perfect, but fine. The detectives said they'd investigate and told her not to confront Daniel yet. Let him think everything went according to plan, they said. Let him think you don't know. It'll make building a case easier. If this story is resonating with you, if you've ever felt betrayed by someone you trusted completely, please hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Stories like this matter. Justice matters. Daniel came to visit Jennifer in recovery that evening. He walked in looking concerned, loving, the perfect devoted husband. "Hey, sweetheart," he said, kissing her forehead. "How are you feeling?" Jennifer looked at him and felt nothing but ice-cold rage. She wanted to scream at him, to demand answers, but the detectives had told her to act normal. "I'm okay," she said. "Still groggy." "The surgery went well." Daniel nodded. "Perfectly routine," he said. "You'll be back to normal in a few weeks." He sat beside her bed holding her hand, and Jennifer had to resist the urge to pull away. This man had tried to have her killed. had stood in an operating room and asked a doctor to let her die, and now he sat here pretending to care, pretending to love her, probably calculating when the life insurance money would come through. Jennifer was released from the hospital 2 days later. She went home to their beautiful house, slept in the bed she shared with her would-be murderer, and played the role of recovering wife. Daniel was attentive, bringing her soup, adjusting her pillows, asking if she needed pain medication. The performance was Oscar-worthy. Jennifer watched him and wondered how long he'd been planning this. Had he hoped she'd die on the operating table? Had he expected the surgeon to actually let her die? What was his backup plan now that she'd survived? The detectives told her to be careful, to not eat or drink anything Daniel gave her without checking it first, to keep her phone on her at all times. They were building a case, but needed more evidence. The investigation moved quickly. Detectives pulled Daniel's financial records and found massive amounts of debt Jennifer knew nothing about. He'd been gambling online, sports betting, losing hundreds of thousands of dollars over 3 years. He'd taken out secret credit cards, maxed them out, been borrowing from loan sharks. He was drowning financially and had hidden it all from Jennifer. Her $3 million life insurance policy was his solution. They also found evidence of an affair. Daniel had been seeing a woman named Melissa Turner for 2 years, a paralegal he'd met at a bar. He'd been telling Melissa that his marriage was over, that he was planning to leave Jennifer, that they'd be together soon. But divorce would have meant splitting. Assets meant Jennifer discovering his debt, meant financial ruin. Murder was cleaner. Life insurance paid out. Debts cleared. Melissa waiting in the wings. He'd thought he had it all figured out. The detectives also discovered that Daniel had been researching ways to kill Jennifer for months. His search history showed queries about untraceable poisons, how to stage accidents, life insurance payout timelines. He'd visited forums about getting away with murder. He'd calculated and planned and waited for an opportunity. When Jennifer got appendicitis, he saw his chance. If he could convince the surgeon to let her die during routine surgery, it would look like a tragic complication. No one would suspect him. The life insurance would pay out. He'd be the grieving widower. It was almost perfect. Except for Patricia Chen, the nurse who'd had the presence of mind to record his request, and except for Jennifer's rare anesthesia awareness that meant she heard everything. 3 weeks after the surgery, the detectives had enough to make an arrest. They came to the house while Daniel was home, while Jennifer was supposedly resting upstairs, but actually watching from the bedroom window. She saw Daniel answer the door, saw the detectives show their badges, saw Daniel's face go white as they read him his Miranda rights. She watched them handcuff him and put him in the police car, and she felt nothing. No sadness, no satisfaction, just cold calculation about what came next. He'd tried to kill her. Now she was going to destroy him completely. Daniel was charged with attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and insurance fraud. The evidence was overwhelming. The recording of him asking the doctor not to save Jennifer, his financial records showing massive debt and the $3 million life insurance policy, his search history planning her murder, text messages to Melissa about being together soon without explaining how. It was all there, documented, undeniable. His attorney tried to claim it was a misunderstanding, that Daniel had been distraught and not thinking clearly, that he'd only wanted to spare his wife suffering if something went wrong. But the prosecution tore that apart. Jennifer hadn't been suffering. She'd had appendicitis, a routine condition, and healthy spouses don't ask surgeons to let their partners die during routine surgeries. The jury would see through any excuse. While Daniel sat in jail awaiting trial, Jennifer filed for divorce. She hired the most aggressive attorney in Seattle, a woman named Margaret Torres, who specialized in high-asset divorces with criminal complications. Margaret took one look at the case and smiled. "This is going to be easy," she said. "Your husband tried to murder you for life insurance money. We're going to take everything." And they did. Jennifer filed for full ownership of their house, their cars, their investments, everything. She filed for damages, for emotional distress, for the cost of living in. Fear, for everything his attempted murder had put her through. Daniel couldn't fight it from jail. His attorney tried to argue he deserved half the marital assets, but Margaret shut that down fast. "Your client tried to kill my client for money," she told the judge. "He doesn't deserve a penny." The divorce was finalized 6 months before the criminal trial. Jennifer got the house, worth $1.2 million. She got their investment accounts, another $800,000. She got his retirement fund, $600,000. She got the cars, the furniture, everything. Daniel was left with nothing but his legal bills and impending prison sentence. Jennifer also sued him civilly for attempted murder, seeking punitive damages. That case was put on hold pending the criminal trial, but Margaret assured her they'd win easily once he was convicted. "Attempted murder of a spouse for financial gain," Margaret said. "A jury will award you millions." And they did. But that came later. The criminal trial was a media sensation. Software engineer tries to murder wife during surgery for life insurance money. It had everything: greed, betrayal, life insurance, a heroic nurse who recorded evidence, a wife who survived. Reporters packed the courtroom. Jennifer sat in the front row every single day, looking directly at Daniel, making sure he saw her alive and strong and ready to watch him go to prison. Daniel couldn't meet her eyes. He'd aged dramatically in the 8 months since his arrest. Lost weight, looked haggard, broken. Good, Jennifer thought. He deserved to suffer the way he'd made her suffer. The prosecution's case was devastating. They played Patricia's recording for the jury. Daniel's voice asking Dr. Martinez not to save his wife. The doctor refusing. Patricia confronting him. The jury sat in stunned silence listening. They presented Jennifer's testimony about waking up during surgery, hearing her husband condemn her to death, the terror of being paralyzed and unable to respond. Several jury members were crying by the time she finished. They presented Daniel's financial records, his gambling debts, the life insurance policy he'd pushed Jennifer to increase. They presented his search history, page after page, of how to kill your wife and get away with it. They presented text messages to Melissa about their future together, sent while he was planning Jennifer's death. The defense had nothing. Daniel's attorney tried to claim he'd been under extreme stress, that his gambling addiction had clouded his judgment, that he hadn't really intended for Jennifer to die, but had panicked in the operating room. But the recording made that impossible to believe. His voice was calm, calculated, not panicked. He'd thought through what he was saying. This wasn't a moment of weakness. It was attempted murder. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. They found Daniel guilty on all counts: attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, insurance fraud. The judge scheduled sentencing for 6 weeks later. Daniel was remanded into custody. Jennifer watched the bailiffs take him away and felt the first real satisfaction she'd experienced in a year. Justice was coming. At sentencing, Jennifer gave a victim impact statement. She stood at the podium looking at Daniel and told the court exactly what he'd done to her, how he'd betrayed her trust, how he'd tried to have her killed, how she'd woken up during surgery and heard him consign her to death, how she now had PTSD from the experience, nightmares about the surgery, fear of medical procedures, anxiety about trusting anyone, how he'd stolen years of her life, making her feel sick, possibly poisoning her, how he'd destroyed her ability to feel safe. She asked the judge to impose the maximum sentence. "He tried to murder me for money," she said. "He deserves to spend decades in prison." The judge agreed. Daniel Walsh was sentenced to 25 years in prison for attempted murder, with additional time for conspiracy and fraud. With good behavior, he might get out in 20 years. He'd be in his late 60s, his career over, his reputation destroyed, his life in ruins. Jennifer was 37 years old, with her whole life ahead of her. She'd won completely. But she wasn't done yet. There was still the civil suit. The civil trial for damages happened 8 months after the criminal conviction. Margaret Torres presented Jennifer's case for punitive damages. Daniel had tried to kill Jennifer for $3 million in life insurance. The jury should award Jennifer far more than that in damages, to punish him for his crime and compensate her for her suffering. The jury agreed. They awarded Jennifer $7.2 million in punitive damages. Daniel had no way to pay it. He'd lost everything in the divorce, but the judgment would follow him forever. If he ever earned money, it would be garnished. If he inherited anything, Jennifer would get it. He'd spend the rest of his life in her debt. Margaret called it poetic justice. The money he'd tried to get by killing her would now be paid to her because he'd tried to kill her. Jennifer's life after all the legal proceedings was a process of rebuilding. The PTSD was real. She had nightmares regularly, would wake up feeling paralyzed, would panic before medical procedures. She found a therapist who specialized in trauma and worked with her for over a year. Slowly, Jennifer processed what had happened. Her husband had tried to murder her. The man she'd trusted most in the world had looked at her as a financial solution to his problems. It was a betrayal so deep that Jennifer wondered if she'd ever trust anyone again. But her therapist helped her understand that Daniel's actions reflected his character, not her judgment. She couldn't have known. He'd hidden his true self perfectly. This wasn't her failure. It was his. Jennifer also dealt with the question everyone asked. Had there been signs? Should she have known? Looking back, yes, there were signs. His controlling behavior, his secrecy, the way he'd pushed for the life insurance, how he'd isolated her from friends and family subtly over the years. But these signs had been easy to rationalize at the time. Every relationship has issues. Every spouse has quirks. Jennifer couldn't blame herself for not predicting that her husband was capable of murder. Most people aren't. She'd had no reason to suspect the depths of his depravity. Patricia Chen, the nurse who'd saved Jennifer's life by recording Daniel's request, became a close friend. They met for coffee a few months after the trial. Patricia told Jennifer she'd known immediately that something was wrong when Daniel made that request. In 20 years of nursing, she'd never heard a spouse ask a doctor not to save their partner during routine surgery. It had set off every alarm in her head. Recording it had been instinct, documentation in case she needed to report him. She'd never imagined it would be evidence in an attempted murder trial. Jennifer hugged her. "You saved my life," she said. "I owe you everything." Patricia shook her head. "You saved your own life by fighting back. I just gave you the tools." Jennifer threw herself into work after the trials ended. Her employer, Microsoft, had been incredibly supportive throughout everything. They'd given her extended leave, had offered counseling, had been flexible about her schedule. Jennifer returned as director of marketing with renewed focus. Work became her sanctuary, a place where she had control, where she could channel her energy into something productive. Within a year, she was promoted to senior director. Within 2 years, to vice president of marketing. Her career flourished. The trauma of what Daniel had done pushed her to prove she was more than a victim, that she'd survived and thrived. Jennifer also became an advocate for women in dangerous marriages. She partnered with domestic violence organizations, shared her story at fundraisers and conferences. She talked about how abuse and control can be invisible, how financial abuse often precedes physical violence, how women need to pay attention to red flags. She talked about the importance of having your own bank account, your own money, your own support system. She talked about not ignoring instincts when something feels wrong. Her story resonated. She heard from dozens of women who'd experienced similar situations, who'd gotten out because they heard Jennifer's story and recognized their own circumstances. Every woman she helped felt like justice multiplied. Jennifer also worked with medical professionals on recognizing family members who might pose risks to patients. The conference where she spoke to surgeons and nurses about her case led to policy changes at several hospitals about who could be in operating rooms and how to handle family members making inappropriate requests. Patricia Chen co-presented with Jennifer, talking about the importance of documentation and trusting your instincts when something feels wrong. Their partnership likely saved other lives. Potential killers would find it harder to use medical procedures to murder spouses. 3 years after the surgery, Jennifer met someone new. His name was Alex Morrison, a fellow executive she met at an industry conference. He was recently divorced, kind, transparent about his life. They started dating slowly. Jennifer was upfront about her past, about Daniel, about her fears and triggers. Alex was patient, understanding, never pushed her for more than she was ready to give. Their relationship developed gradually over 2 years. Alex proved himself trustworthy again and again. He respected boundaries. He communicated openly. He never tried to control or manipulate. Slowly, Jennifer learned to trust again. It wasn't easy. The scars Daniel left were deep. But Alex's consistency helped her believe that not all men were dangerous, that partnership could be real. Alex proposed 4 years after they met, 7 years after Jennifer's surgery. They got married in a small ceremony with close friends and family. Patricia Chen was there, sitting in the front row, beaming. Jennifer's parents, who'd been devastated by what Daniel did, were crying happy tears. Jennifer wore a simple dress and felt genuinely happy for the first time in years. This was what marriage should be: partnership, trust, love without manipulation or hidden agendas. Alex treated her as an equal, valued her input, supported her career. He was everything Daniel had pretended to be, but never was. Daniel remained in prison. Jennifer had no contact with him, wanted none. She heard through legal channels that he'd tried to appeal his conviction multiple times. All appeals were denied. He tried to claim ineffective counsel, that his attorney should have negotiated a plea deal. Rejected. The appellate court found his attorney had provided adequate representation and that Daniel's case was simply indefensible, given the overwhelming evidence. He tried to claim the recording Patricia made was inadmissible, arguing it violated his privacy rights. Rejected. The court ruled that statements made in a hospital operating room where patient safety was at issue had no expectation of privacy, and that Patricia, as a medical professional, had a duty to document threats to patient care. He tried to claim Jennifer's anesthesia, awareness was fabricated, that she couldn't have actually heard anything, and was lying for revenge. Rejected. Medical experts testified that anesthesia awareness, while rare, was well documented, and Jennifer's detailed account matched the recording Patricia had made, proving she'd heard exactly what she claimed. Every attempt to escape justice failed. He was going to serve his full sentence, likely dying in prison given his age when he'd be eligible for release. Jennifer was glad. He deserved every single year, every single day locked away. Melissa Turner, Daniel's mistress, also faced serious consequences. When news broke about Daniel's attempted murder of his wife, Melissa lost her job at the prestigious law firm where she worked. The managing partners didn't want the negative publicity of employing the woman who'd been sleeping with an attempted murderer, who'd been planning a future with a man actively plotting his wife's death. Melissa tried to claim she'd had no idea what Daniel was planning, that he'd told her his marriage was ending naturally through divorce, but text evidence presented at trial showed she'd known he was married and actively living with his wife, and she hadn't cared. She'd participated in a 2-year affair, knowing she was helping destroy a marriage. Messages showed her asking when he'd be done with his wife, when they could go public, when she'd finally have him to herself. While she may not have known about the murder plot specifically, she'd been complicit in the betrayal and deception. Public opinion wasn't sympathetic. People saw her as the other woman who'd been complicit in a murder attempt, even if indirectly. She received death threats, harassment online, had reporters camped outside her apartment. She ended up leaving Seattle entirely, moving to Portland, and then eventually to Phoenix. trying to start over somewhere no one knew her name or her story. Jennifer felt no sympathy. Melissa had been perfectly willing to destroy Jennifer's marriage, to be with a married man, to participate in Daniel's lies. The fact that she claimed ignorance about his ultimate plan didn't absolve her of being a knowing participant in his betrayal. She'd made choices, and choices have consequences. The insurance company that had issued Jennifer's $3 million life insurance policy also faced scrutiny. The media questioned how a policy that large had been approved without more vetting, especially given Daniel's financial problems. The company defended their underwriting process, but they ended up implementing new policies requiring financial disclosure from spouses who were policy beneficiaries, specifically to catch situations where someone might be taking out insurance on a spouse while hiding financial motives to kill them. Jennifer's case became a cautionary tale in the insurance industry, studied in fraud prevention courses, used as an example of beneficiary murder plots. The company also paid out a settlement to Jennifer for the trauma of learning her husband had viewed her as a $3 million payday. The settlement was confidential, but Jennifer's attorney, Margaret Torres, hinted it was substantial. Adding to the $7.2 million in civil damages Jennifer had already been awarded. Jennifer's parents struggled deeply with what had happened. Her father, John Walsh, had liked Daniel, had welcomed him into the family, had trusted him with his daughter's life. Learning that Daniel had tried to murder Jennifer destroyed him. He blamed himself for not seeing warning signs, for not protecting his daughter better, for being charmed by Daniel's facade. Jennifer spent hours reassuring her father that none of this was his fault, that Daniel had fooled everyone, that even she'd had no idea who he really was. Her mother, Carolyn, was furious in a way Jennifer had never seen. She wrote Daniel a letter in prison, telling him exactly what she thought of him, how he'd betrayed their family's trust, how if she could, she'd add years to his sentence. The letter was cathartic for Carolyn, but was intercepted by prison authorities and never delivered, deemed threatening. Carolyn didn't care. Writing it had helped her process her rage. Both of Jennifer's parents went to therapy to deal with the trauma of nearly losing their daughter and discovering the man they'd welcomed as a son-in-law was a would-be killer. Family therapy sessions helped Jennifer and her parents process everything together, rebuild trust in people, work through the complicated emotions of betrayal and survival. Jennifer's friends had similarly complex reactions. Her best friend Rachel had been suspicious of Daniel for years, had never liked how controlling he was, how he isolated Jennifer from her friend group, how everything had to be on his terms. After Daniel's arrest, Rachel told Jennifer she'd been worried but hadn't known how to express it without seeming jealous or judgmental. "I should have said something," Rachel cried. "I should have pushed harder." Jennifer hugged her. "You couldn't have known he was planning murder. Even I didn't know." Rachel became one of Jennifer's strongest supporters through the trials, attending court every day she could, helping Jennifer process her emotions, being there when Jennifer had nightmares or panic attacks. Their friendship, tested by Daniel's attempts to isolate Jennifer, emerged stronger. Rachel also became more vocal about warning signs of abusive relationships, sharing educational posts on social media, donating to domestic violence organizations, determined to help other women recognize danger before it was too late. The medical community responded to Jennifer's case with important policy changes. Dr. Robert Martinez, the surgeon who'd refused Daniel's request to let Jennifer die, became an advocate for protecting patients from family members with malicious intent. He co-authored a paper for the American Medical Association about recognizing and responding to potential threats to patient safety from family members. The paper recommended recording all conversations with family members who made unusual requests, having security present when family members were behaving suspiciously, and implementing strict limits on who could be present during surgeries. Many hospitals adopted these recommendations. Dr. Martinez also testified before Congress about the need for better screening of life insurance beneficiaries who might have motives to harm policyholders. His testimony, combined with Jennifer's victim impact statement, led to federal legislation requiring insurance companies to report suspicious policy applications to law enforcement. Jennifer and Dr. Martinez formed an unlikely but powerful partnership, speaking together at medical conferences, on news programs, in policy forums, advocating for changes that would prevent other Daniels from using medical procedures to murder their spouses. Patricia Chen's life changed too. The nurse who'd had the instinct to record Daniel's suspicious request became nationally recognized for her quick thinking and bravery. She received awards from nursing organizations, was invited to speak at conferences, was profiled in medical journals. But Patricia remained humble, always emphasizing that she'd simply done what any good nurse should do: document threats to patient safety. She and Jennifer developed a deep friendship based on the trauma they'd shared. Patricia had nightmares too, replaying that moment in the operating room, wondering what would have happened if she hadn't recorded the conversation, if Dr. Martinez had somehow agreed to Daniel's request, if Jennifer had died. Therapy helped Patricia process her own trauma. She eventually became a trainer for other nurses on recognizing abuse and protecting patients from dangerous family members. Her course became mandatory at Swedish Medical Center and was adopted by hospitals throughout Washington state. Patricia retired from bedside nursing after 25 years, but continued her training and advocacy work, finding new purpose in preventing what had almost happened to Jennifer from happening to other vulnerable patients. The Seattle Police Department detectives who'd investigated Daniel also saw their careers advance. Detective Sarah Patel, who'd been the lead investigator, was promoted to sergeant-based, partly on her work on Jennifer's case. She'd built an airtight case quickly, gathering financial records, search history, affair evidence, everything needed to prove premeditated attempted murder. Detective James Rodriguez, her partner, was recognized with an award for outstanding detective work. Both detectives stayed in touch with Jennifer, checking on her periodically, making sure she felt safe, offering support during the trial and afterward. When Daniel filed his appeals, they helped the prosecution team respond, providing additional documentation, testifying again when needed. They became invested in Jennifer's case beyond professional duty, genuinely caring about her safety and justice. Detective Patel told Jennifer once that in 20 years of police work, she'd never seen a case quite like this. Someone trying to use routine surgery as a murder weapon. It was calculated and cold in a way that stuck with her. Making sure Daniel stayed in prison became personal for both detectives. Jennifer's employer, Microsoft, also responded supportively, beyond just giving her leave and flexibility. The company's CEO personally called Jennifer to express support and offer any resources she needed. Microsoft's legal team offered to help with her civil lawsuit if needed, though Margaret Torres had it well in hand. The company made a sizable donation to domestic violence prevention organizations in Jennifer's name. They also implemented new policies around supporting employees dealing with domestic violence or attempted violence from partners, providing resources, legal assistance, and protection. Jennifer's story became a catalyst for positive change throughout the company. Her colleagues rallied around her, but respected her privacy, didn't gossip or pry, just offered quiet support. When she returned to work, they treated her normally, which was exactly what she needed. Work became her refuge, a place where she was valued for her skills and contributions, not defined by being a victim. Her promotion to vice president came on merit, but her resilience through trauma certainly demonstrated leadership qualities. She excelled under pressure, made good decisions in crisis, showed strategic thinking. The attempted murder hadn't broken her. It had revealed her strength. Jennifer also dealt with media attention, something she hadn't anticipated. Her case made national news. Software engineer tries to kill wife during surgery. For insurance money was a headline that traveled far. Reporters wanted interviews. True crime podcasts wanted to feature her story. Jennifer was selective about media engagement. She did a few carefully chosen interviews with reputable journalists who treated her story respectfully. She appeared on one national morning show to talk about recognizing financial abuse and controlling behavior in relationships. She participated in a documentary about insurance fraud and beneficiary murders, but she turned down most requests, particularly from sensationalist true crime content that wanted to exploit her trauma for entertainment. Jennifer wanted her story told accurately and used to help others, not sensationalized. She maintained control over her narrative, which was important for her healing. The media attention eventually faded, which relieved her. She didn't want to be famous for being a survivor. She wanted to return to normal life, whatever that meant now. There were also legal complications Jennifer hadn't expected. Daniel's family tried to contact her, his parents and sister claiming they couldn't believe Daniel was capable of attempted murder, suggesting Jennifer must have done something to provoke him or that the evidence was somehow fabricated. Jennifer's attorney Margaret Torres sent a cease and desist letter threatening a harassment lawsuit if they contacted Jennifer again. They stopped, but their victim-blaming attempt hurt Jennifer deeply. She'd always gotten along with Daniel's family. They'd seemed kind, normal, supportive. Learning they were willing to blame her for their son and brother's attempted murder was another betrayal. It reinforced something Jennifer's therapist had told her, that family members of abusers and criminals often can't accept the truth about their loved ones, would rather blame victims than confront reality. It was painful, but clarified that Jennifer owed nothing to anyone who couldn't accept that Daniel had tried to kill her. She cut off all contact with his family permanently. Financial recovery was complex too. While Jennifer had won millions in judgments, actually collecting money from Daniel was impossible. He had nothing. The divorce had taken all marital assets. His gambling debts exceeded anything he'd ever owned. The $7.2 million civil judgment was essentially uncollectible. Margaret Torres explained that judgments often went uncollected when defendants had no assets. But the judgment served other purposes, she said. It was public record of the harm Daniel caused. It would follow him forever. If he ever inherited money, got a windfall, won the lottery somehow, Jennifer could collect. And psychologically, Jennifer found value in the judgment itself. A jury of 12 people had heard her story and agreed she deserved $7.2 million for what Daniel did to her. That validation mattered more than the actual money. The insurance settlement and the divorce settlement had left Jennifer financially secure. The judgment was about justice, about public acknowledgement that Daniel had destroyed her life and owed an unpayable debt. Now, 10 years after the surgery, Jennifer is 46 years old and thriving in ways she never imagined possible. She's chief marketing officer at a major tech company, leading a team of over 200 marketing professionals, overseeing budgets in the hundreds of millions, shaping how technology products reach consumers worldwide. Her career trajectory after surviving attempted murder has been remarkable. The trauma could have broken her, could have made her afraid to take risks or trust her judgment. Instead, it sharpened her instincts, taught her to trust herself, showed her she could survive anything. Those qualities translated into exceptional leadership. Her team admires her resilience, her decisiveness, her ability to stay calm under pressure. They don't all know her full story, but those who do understand why she's so strong. She's happily married to Alex Morrison, who proved himself trustworthy through years of patient, consistent partnership. Their marriage is everything her marriage to Daniel wasn't. Built on honesty, transparency, mutual respect, genuine partnership. Alex never tries to control Jennifer, never makes major decisions without consulting her, never hides financial information or secrets. They maintain individual bank accounts along with joint accounts, a boundary Jennifer insisted on, and Alex supported without question. He understood why she needed financial independence and autonomy. Their relationship is secure enough to handle separate accounts, separate money, separate lives that intersect beautifully. They travel extensively, taking trips to places Jennifer had always wanted to visit, but Daniel had never prioritized. Italy, Japan, New Zealand, Spain, Iceland. They've explored the world together, building new memories to replace the ones tainted by Daniel's betrayal. They've talked about children, but decided against it. both content with their careers and their partnership, not needing parenthood to feel complete. Jennifer sometimes wonders what her life would look like if she'd had children with Daniel, how much more complicated the attempted murder and divorce would have been. She's grateful they'd waited, grateful she can build this new life with Alex without that complication. They have a beautiful home overlooking Lake Washington, purchased together after Jennifer sold the house she'd shared with Daniel. She couldn't live there anymore, couldn't walk through rooms where Daniel had planned her murder, where he'd pretended to love her while plotting her death. Selling it was cathartic, closing that chapter completely. The new house with Alex is theirs together, filled with joy and safety, no ghosts of past trauma haunting the hallways. Jennifer decorated it herself, every choice reflecting her taste, her personality, not compromising or accommodating someone else's controlling preferences. It's a tangible representation of her reclaimed autonomy and her new happiness. Friends and family visit often. The house is filled with laughter, dinner parties, game nights, celebrations. It's everything a home should be, everything her home with Daniel never was. Jennifer is financially secure beyond what she'd ever expected. The insurance settlement, the divorce settlement, her high salary, smart investments have left her wealthy. Money can't erase trauma, but financial security provides safety and options. Jennifer never has to worry about supporting herself, never has to stay in a situation for financial reasons, never has to depend on anyone. That independence is priceless. She's generous with her money too, donating substantially to domestic violence prevention organizations, women's shelters, legal aid funds that help women escape dangerous marriages. She's established a scholarship fund for women survivors of intimate partner violence who want to pursue education or career training. She funds legal assistance for women who can't afford attorneys in divorce cases involving abuse or attempted violence. Her money does good, helps other women escape situations similar to hers, turns her wealth into purpose beyond just personal comfort. She's emotionally healthy in ways that surprised her therapist, Dr. Lisa Kim, who worked with Jennifer for over 5 years processing the trauma, admitted she'd expected Jennifer to struggle much longer with trust issues, with fear, with PTSD symptoms, but Jennifer did the work, committed to healing, refused to let Daniel's actions define her forever. The nightmares about the surgery faded gradually, from nightly to weekly, to monthly, to occasional. She can undergo medical procedures now without panic, though she always insists on having Alex present and always interviews her medical team beforehand to feel comfortable with them. She's learned to trust again, not blindly but wisely, with healthy skepticism and boundaries. She's genuinely happy, not performing happiness to convince herself or others, but actually content with her life. Dr. Kim called her recovery remarkable, a testament to resilience and determination. Jennifer credits the therapy, the support system, the fact that Daniel faced full consequences for his actions. Justice had mattered. Watching him convicted, sentenced, imprisoned had provided closure that allowed healing to begin. Without that accountability, she might still be struggling. Jennifer's advocacy work has expanded significantly over the years. What started as occasional speaking engagements has become a substantial part of her life. She sits on the board of directors for 2 national domestic violence prevention organizations, using her business expertise to help them operate more effectively, fundraise more successfully, reach more women in need. She speaks regularly at conferences, universities, corporate events about recognizing abuse, supporting survivors, creating policies that protect vulnerable people. Her story resonates because it's not the typical domestic violence narrative. She wasn't physically beaten. She didn't have bruises or obvious injuries. The abuse was financial, emotional, controlling, invisible to outsiders. Then it escalated to attempted murder in a way no one saw coming. Her story helps people understand that abuse takes many forms, that danger can hide behind a successful career and a nice house and a seemingly normal marriage. She's helped countless women recognize similar patterns in their own relationships and get out before situations escalate to violence. She's also worked with law enforcement, training police officers and detectives on financial abuse, on how abusers hide money and create dependency, on red flags that might indicate someone is planning to harm their spouse. Detective Sarah Patel, who investigated Jennifer's case, invited Jennifer to help develop training materials for the Seattle Police Department. Jennifer collaborated on a training program that's now used not just in Seattle, but in police departments across Washington and neighboring states. She teaches officers to look beyond physical violence when investigating domestic situations, to ask about finances, control, isolation, changes in life insurance policies. Her input has likely saved lives, helped officers recognize danger signs before attempted murders occur. That work is deeply satisfying, turning her traumatic experience into practical tools that protect others. Jennifer has written a book about her experience, published 3 years ago by a major publisher. The book, titled Awake: Surviving a Husband's Murder Plot and Reclaiming Life, became a bestseller. It detailed everything: her marriage to Daniel, the slow erosion of their relationship, the appendicitis, waking up during surgery, hearing his request to let her die, the investigation, trials, recovery, rebuilding. She wrote honestly about the trauma, the healing process, the anger, the grief, the eventual acceptance and peace. She included practical advice for women on protecting themselves financially, recognizing red flags, documenting abuse, leaving safely. The book resonated widely. Women who'd experienced intimate partner violence saw their own stories reflected. Women in happy marriages read it and became more aware of potential dangers. Prosecutors and police used it as a resource for understanding victim perspectives. The book tour took Jennifer across the country. She signed thousands of copies, heard thousands of stories from readers who connected with her experience. Many told her the book had saved their lives, helped them recognize their own dangerous situations and escape. Those conversations made the vulnerability of publishing her trauma worthwhile. The media attention from the book was overwhelming, but ultimately positive. Jennifer appeared on major talk shows, news programs, podcasts discussing her story and broader issues of intimate partner violence and financial abuse. She used the platform strategically, always steering conversations toward helping other women rather than sensationalizing her trauma. Producers initially wanted to focus on the dramatic elements: the surgery, the recording, the criminal trial. Jennifer insisted on also discussing warning signs, resources, prevention. Most interviewers respected that. Her message reached millions of people. Domestic violence hotlines reported increased calls from people referencing Jennifer's story and recognizing similar patterns in their lives. That impact, that ripple effect of awareness and prevention, meant everything to Jennifer. Her pain had purpose. Her story saved others. That transformed her from victim to survivor to advocate. Jennifer maintains boundaries carefully regarding Daniel. She's never contacted him in prison, never responded to the few letters he managed to get to her despite no contact orders, never considered the forgiveness he claimed to seek in those letters. Her therapist asked if she ever felt pulled toward forgiving him, if holding on to anger hurt her healing. Jennifer was clear. She didn't hold anger anymore, but she also owed him nothing, including forgiveness. He'd tried to murder her for money. He'd betrayed every vow they'd taken. He'd viewed her as a financial obstacle to eliminate. She felt nothing toward him now. Not anger, not forgiveness, just indifference. He existed somewhere in a prison cell, irrelevant to her life. That neutrality, that complete absence of feeling toward him, was its own form of closure. She'd moved on so completely that he couldn't touch her emotionally anymore, couldn't inspire any feeling at all. Her therapist agreed that indifference was perhaps the healthiest possible outcome, better even than forgiveness, because it meant Daniel truly didn't matter to her anymore. Jennifer sometimes reflects on the randomness of her survival, how many small things had to align for her to live. If she hadn't experienced anesthesia awareness, she never would have known about Daniel's request. If Patricia hadn't been the nurse on duty that day, If Patricia hadn't had the instincts and courage to record the conversation, there would have been no evidence. If Dr. Martinez had been a different surgeon, someone less ethical or more easily manipulated, he might have agreed to Daniel's request. If Jennifer's appendix had burst before she got to the hospital, if the surgery had been more complicated, if her heart had stopped for any reason, Daniel might have gotten his wish. So many variables, so many moments where things could have gone differently and she'd be dead. Daniel would be rich and free. Justice would never have been served. The fragility of survival humbles her, makes her grateful for every day, reminds her how precious life is and how important it is to live fully. She's also aware of how her story could have been dismissed or discredited. If she'd been less educated, less articulate, less financially stable, would people have believed her? If Patricia hadn't recorded the conversation, if it was just Jennifer's word against Daniel's about what happened during surgery, would anyone have believed her anesthesia awareness was real? If Daniel's gambling debts and affair hadn't provided clear motive, if his search history hadn't documented his planning, if the evidence hadn't been so overwhelming, could he have convinced people she was mentally unstable or making things up? Jennifer knows many women aren't believed when they report abuse or danger from partners. She had advantages, resources, clear evidence, a supportive system that took her seriously. Not every woman has those advantages. That awareness drives her advocacy work. She uses her privilege and platform to amplify voices of women who aren't as easily heard, who don't have resources, who struggle to be believed. She donates money to legal funds, speaks about systemic issues that make escaping abuse harder for poor women or women of color or immigrant women, pushes for policy changes that protect all women regardless of their circumstances. Jennifer thinks about that day in the operating room sometimes, though less frequently as years pass. The moment she woke up paralyzed and heard her husband try to have her killed remains seared in her memory, though the emotional charge has faded. It was the worst 90 seconds of her life, a moment of pure terror and betrayal and helplessness. But it was also clarifying in a way nothing else could have been. It stripped away all illusion about who Daniel was, about what her marriage had been, about the danger she'd been living with without recognizing it. That terrible moment of awareness gave her the truth she needed to save herself, to fight back, to ensure justice. If she'd never woken up, if Patricia hadn't recorded Daniel's request, if the doctor had somehow agreed to let her die, she'd be 10 years in the grave. Daniel would have collected $3 million. He'd have paid off his gambling debts. He'd probably be with Melissa or someone new. He'd have gotten away with murder. No one would have suspected him. He'd be living his life, free and comfortable, while Jennifer's parents mourned their murdered daughter without ever knowing the truth. Instead, reality went very differently. Daniel sits in a Washington state prison, serving year 10 of a 25-year sentence. He's 56 years old now, grey and aging badly in photos Jennifer has seen in news coverage of his failed appeals. He'll be in his mid-70s if he serves his full sentence. His life effectively over, his career destroyed, his reputation forever that of a would-be murderer. Meanwhile, Jennifer is thriving in every possible way. She's alive, successful, happily married, financially secure, emotionally healthy, doing meaningful work that helps others. She's everything Daniel tried to prevent her from being. Her survival and success are the ultimate revenge, better than any punishment the legal system could impose. He tried to erase her for money and convenience, and instead, he erased himself while she flourished. That inversion of his plan, that complete reversal of his intended outcome, satisfies Jennifer in a deep way that has nothing to do with cruelty and everything to do with justice. The lesson, if there is one that Jennifer would want others to take from her story, is this: trust your instincts about the people in your life. If something feels wrong, if someone's behavior shifts or becomes controlling or secretive, investigate. Don't ignore red flags. Don't rationalize away concerning behavior with excuses about stress or work or anything else. Don't let love blind you to danger. Protect yourself financially always. Have your own bank accounts, your own money, your own credit, your own financial identity, separate from any partner. Know your worth and refuse to accept treatment that diminishes you, controls you, or makes you feel unsafe. And if you find yourself in danger, if you recognize that someone intends you harm, fight back with absolutely everything you have. Document everything you can. Seek help from people you trust. Use the legal system. Don't let fear silence you or convince you that leaving is impossible or that no one will believe you. Jennifer survived attempted murder because she refused to be a victim once she knew the truth. She fought back systematically, strategically, using every resource available to her. She made sure Daniel faced full consequences for his actions, that he lost everything, that he went to prison, that justice was served completely. That's the story that really matters. Not that Daniel tried to kill her, though that's important to know. Not that she survived, though that's crucial. But that she took her survival and transformed it into something powerful, into justice and advocacy and healing and purpose. She didn't just survive Daniel's murder attempt. She made sure it destroyed him instead of her. She rebuilt her life into something better than it had been before. She used her trauma to help other women recognize danger and escape it. She changed policies and trained professionals, and wrote a book and gave speeches, and donated money, and sat on boards and did everything possible to transform her worst nightmare into a force for good in the world. That's not just survival. That's victory. That's taking the worst thing that ever happened to you and making it mean something beyond the pain. That's refusing to let an attempted murderer define your story. That's writing your own ending where you thrive, and he pays and justice prevails, and other women are saved because of what you went through. Jennifer Walsh, at 46, is living proof that you can survive the worst betrayal imaginable and attempted murder, that you can heal from profound trauma through commitment to therapy and support systems, that you can rebuild a life worth living from the ashes of what was destroyed, that you can find genuine love and learn to trust again even after the deepest betrayal, that you can turn unimaginable pain into meaningful purpose that helps others. She's proof that justice is possible when you fight for it, that accountability matters profoundly in healing, that fighting back strategically works and changes outcomes, that resilience is real and measurable and achievable. She's proof that women are stronger than the men who try to destroy them, that survival is achievable even in the darkest circumstances. Daniel thought she was an obstacle, a problem to eliminate, a means to an end, a $3 million solution to his gambling debts. He thought wrong about everything, especially about who Jennifer Walsh was and remains. Jennifer was and is so much more than he ever understood or valued. She's a survivor, a fighter, an advocate, a leader, a wife, a friend, a daughter, a success story. She's everything he tried to prevent, and everything he never was: honest, strong, resilient, good. And she'll spend the rest of her life free and thriving while he rots in prison, which is exactly the ending this story deserves. Perfect justice, complete victory, absolute triumph of good over evil, of victim over perpetrator, of woman over man who underestimated her. That's Jennifer's story. That's the message. That's the truth worth sharing. Thank you for watching this story. If you found it powerful or helpful, please subscribe to this channel for more stories of survival, justice, and resilience. Share it with someone who might need to hear it. Drop a comment about what resonated with you. And remember, if you're going through something similar, if someone in your life is making you feel unsafe, you're stronger than you know. You deserve safety, respect, love, and support. And justice is absolutely possible if you're willing to fight for it. Resources are available. People will help you. You can escape, and you can rebuild, and you can thrive. Jennifer's story proves it. Take care of yourselves, stay safe, trust your instincts, and I'll see you in the next video.